We're back with another episode of Mac Stories Unwind. This episode is brought to you by SaneBox. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Vitici. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Sweltering here in the south. I hear it's very warm in Rome as well, so I guess I think we actually have pretty close to the same weather now, so I think our weather conversations won't be very interesting going forward. But I do know that we're both very hot right now because it's the middle of the summer, and I know Rome gets very humid, very hot. There's a big heat wave throughout Europe, and that includes, especially, I think, northern Italy, from what I saw on the news. But in any event, it's just normal hot here. It's not quite as hot as it is in Rome. In any event, I thought today we would do something a little different than our usual pair of picks. We're going to still have a pick, but the first one is a pick of a different sort. I wanted to talk about an app because one of the things with Unwind is that you and I, we need to kind of keep on top of some of the things that we want to recommend, whether it's saving movies and TV shows in some sort of app to pay, to revisit at a later time, or whether it's some sort of app with music or video games or whatever it is. We have a whole menu of apps that we use to keep track of these things so we know what we want to watch, listen to, play at some point in the future, and to kind of keep notes and things. And one of those apps, so I wanted today to focus on just one of those apps. And maybe we'll do this here and there throughout the summer to maybe give people an idea of ways that they can also keep up to date and organized with the media they want to watch so things don't fall through the cracks. And today I want to start with music. And in particular, I want to start with Marcos Tanaka's app, MusicBox, which is a fairly new app on the App Store. It's available on the iPhone, the iPad, and on the Mac.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is one of the best new apps to come out in 2022, I think. And it's the kind of app that as I wrote in my review on Mac Stories, it's the kind of app that I've always wanted to have. Essentially, it's read later, but for music. And the idea is that with modern music streaming services, we have so much choice when it comes to, having new singles and albums and compilations and remasters and live performances being released on a weekly basis every Friday. And especially if you're like me, and I think John is also like me. So if you like to listen to a lot of different music and you don't really, you're not really the kind of person who just listens to one genre of music, but if you like to have a more diverse music diet, I guess, this is where MusicBox really comes in handy. Because you have so many music releases on a weekly basis, you need a space to properly keep track of those new music releases. And the thing is, MusicBox, they don't have to be necessarily recent music releases. This is one key aspect to understand about MusicBox, as opposed to, say, Marcos Tanaka's other music app, Music Harbor. Music Harbor, which we also covered on, I believe, on Unwind and on Mac Stories for sure before. Music Harbor is designed to let you keep track of new releases. Every Friday, like I just did a couple of minutes ago, you open Music Harbor and you will see new releases from artists you follow. MusicBox, it integrates with Music Harbor, which I want to talk about in a minute. And it's for sure designed to, hey, let me save this new album for later. But you can also use MusicBox to, say, save albums from a new artist that you didn't necessarily know before. But the artist put out, a couple of albums 5 years ago. You can save those into MusicBox. So it is optimized for new music releases, but you don't have to use it that way. You can create a collection of old albums, and MusicBox lets you do that just fine without any issues.
Yeah, and I think the thing for me that it's really solved is a very specific problem that I run into all the time, and it comes up most often on Fridays when I'm listening to the Apple Music New Music Mix. And I'll listen to that playlist, and very often there'll be 3 or 4 things that, intrigue me, and I want to go explore and see, is this part of is this a single? Is this an EP? Is it part of a broader album? Where does this come from, and what else is available? And I'll go looking, and I'll find something that I want to listen to. But if I start playing it right then, I'll lose my spot in the playlist. And so I don't want to do that. I want to get back to it, but I don't want to listen to it immediately. So that's a perfect situation where you can use the share sheet in MusicBox, the extension, to save it from right within the Apple Music app to MusicBox and then revisit it later. And what I do, the app has the ability to do things like tagging, for instance. So if you really want to have like a system in place where you have ones that are like, oh, here's something that I'm saving for later. Here's something I listened to and liked. Here's something I listened to and I didn't like. You can kind of create a tagging system to accomplish a lot of things like that. I mostly, though, just drop it in the bucket. And when I'm at a loss of something to listen to later, that's when I dip into MusicBox, because you can go in there and you can then tell it to start playing this right directly in Apple Music, and it'll do so. So that's kind of how I've been using it. Plus, when I get a random recommendation, maybe from you or maybe in our Club Mac Stories Discord, I'll see something interesting. Like I saw a couple of albums today from bands that I like that I didn't realize had a new album today, right? Like Beach Bunny was one of them. And I immediately just took that URL, opened up MusicBox and pasted in the URL. And that's all it takes. It's super easy to use, which is really key for this kind of app, because it's getting things in quickly when you're doing something else, especially if you're listening to music while you work or do something around the house, that kind of thing. It really pays off if the app makes it simple, and MusicBox really succeeds on that level, I think.
Yeah, I also use the share sheet a lot, and it's definitely it makes it so easy to save from music. And something that I do is I rely on tagging in MusicBox to keep things organized. And I do it in a couple of different ways, because I take advantage both of the automatic tagging the MusicBox has, as well as I also use the manual tagging. The manual tagging I use mostly for when I'm saving, as you mentioned, John, recommendations from our Discord or recommendations from Jason Tate at Chorus FM. With the Discord, when someone mentions an album, I just tap the link, I open the album in Music, and I manually add the Discord tag from the share sheet extension so that I can remember, hey, this recommendation came from your Discord server. And that's been a nice way to have all those recommendations in one place. And similarly, when I'm catching up on the Jason Tate newsletter from Chorus FM every week, all the albums that Jason recommends, and I've been following Jason forever, since I was in high school, and the fact that we can now we now know each other on the internet, and we talk in private is kind of wild for me to think about. But anyway, whenever an album that Jason recommends sort of catches my attention, I do the same. And I have a Jason Tate tag in my MusicBox, and that's what I do for saving Jason recommendations. Broadly speaking, I have an automatic tagging system set up so that I have two tags, one called album and another called single or EP. And based on the type of content that I'm saving in MusicBox, those tags are automatically applied. So later, I have an easy way to see all the albums or all the singles and EPs. This is especially useful when I'm saving content. I think I should steal that one. Yeah. Yes. This is really useful when I'm saving content from Music Harbor, because Music Harbor now has a direct MusicBox integration from the context menu. When you long press an item in Music Harbor, you can say add to MusicBox. And so whether you're saving an album or a new EP, the automatic tagging takes care of categorizing that for you. So, and I do that a lot. Like every Friday, I open Music Harbor, I refresh my library, and all the things that I want to listen to later, I just press add to MusicBox, and that direct integration takes care of everything for me. So it's a really nice system, and the fact that I can use MusicBox, through different methods, whether I'm browsing in the Music app, or I'm opening recommendations from you or from people in Discord, or I'm reading a music website. Like the fact that MusicBox can serve as a centralized bucket for all these types of music recommendations is really lovely. And it's why, as I said, right now it has to be one of my favorite new apps of 2022, because it's the kind of thing that didn't exist before. And for me personally, it fixes a real problem that I've had for years. And it does so in a native design. All the latest technologies of iOS and iPadOS are supported. In fact, MusicBox is one of the, if not the only good use case for Shazam Kit that I've seen to date. So I absolutely love this app, and this is how I use it.
Yeah, I love the app too. This episode of Mac Stories Unwind is brought to you by SaneBox, your personal email assistant that automatically organizes your inbox, saving you loads of valuable time. SaneBox works with your existing email service, so your most important messages always reach your inbox. The rest of your messages are carefully organized into designated folders like the Sane Later and Sane News folders. You can snooze emails too, setting them aside to deal with when you have the time. Better yet, if you're getting messages from someone you never want to get them from again, just send that email to the Sane Black Hole folder and it'll disappear. It's a lot easier than trying to unsubscribe. SaneBox has a reminder system too. Sane reminders are a terrific way to stay on task. Send yourself reminders to do something later and get a reminder when someone hasn't responded to one of your messages. Also, because SaneBox works with your existing email setup, there's no app to download or email account to set up. You can use any email service and client you want. Sign up today for a 14-day free trial with SaneBox to take back control of your email. You'll see big benefits immediately as the message count in your inbox drops drastically. And you'll be able to maintain control going forward with SaneBox's help. Mac Stories readers and listeners of this show can receive a special $25 credit automatically by going to sanebox.com/MacStories. Again, that URL to get a $25 special credit from SaneBox is sanebox.com/MacStories. Our thanks to SaneBox for their support of Mac Stories Unwind. All right, Federico, let me dive into my pick for this week, which is Blackbird, a brand new TV miniseries on Apple TV Plus. So this show is a series with only 6 episodes. Apple dropped the first 2, I guess it was a little over 2 weeks ago, and has since dropped one more, and with another one coming out today as we record this. And this is the story. It's a serial killer detective drama, okay? It takes place in the 90s in Indiana and Illinois. And it's based on a true story. There's a book associated with this. This is an adaptation of a book called In with the Devil. And it comes out on Fridays. And what I think, it's got a really good pedigree too. It's got the series creator and the co-writer for this and co-director is Dennis Lehane, who was involved with The Wire on HBO, which is, considered one of the better HBO series ever. And that was a detective show as well. And this is the story of a guy named Jimmy Keene. Jimmy Keene is the actual name of the person. That's the author of the book as well. And Jimmy Keene is played by Taron Egerton, and he's a cocky guy who was like the high school football star, but he kind of has gone bad. His dad's a cop who's had his ups and downs, played by Ray Liotta in one of his very last roles before he passed away. And Jimmy Keene has gone bad and is now a drug dealer. He's living in this incredibly nice house. He's got his friends over, he's playing video games and he's going out and this whole series opens with him hanging out with his buddies, and his buddies stay back at the house while he goes off to do a drug deal. And he's doing some pretty serious deals. He's caught by the police. The FBI raid his house. They find a bunch of weapons as well as drugs. And because there were so many weapons in his house, he gets serious jail time. And so he's in jail. his father is, as a former cop, is really distressed about this situation, and it's really kind of affecting not only, his relationship with his son, but also his own health. And so Jimmy's in prison and feeling bad, feeling guilty about what he's done to his family, feeling bad about not wanting to be in prison, and he's just becoming kind of a hustler in prison, though, because he was a hustler outside of prison. He's finding ways to make money and get by in prison as best he can because he's got a pretty long sentence, but he really badly wants out. And the feds come to him and they give him a deal. They say, all right, if you can get a confession out of this guy we have in this other prison, we'll let you go scot-free. We'll let you out of prison. You'll get to go home to your family. And the way the story works is it kind of goes back and forth between Jimmy's life, both before he goes to prison and in prison, and then the story of Larry Hall, who is the accused serial killer who lives in Indiana. And he's a real kind of oddball guy with long sideburns who does, Civil War reenactments on the weekends, kind of an outsider who grew up the son of a gravedigger in a cemetery and works as a janitor. And he's at various times in the past confessed to a bunch of murders, but he's such an oddball character. He's always written off as being someone starved for attention and confessing to these crimes as a way to get attention from the police and the media and things like that. And as a result, he's dismissed and, no one really takes him seriously until there's a murder in Illinois across state lines. And a different detective is looking into it and believes that this guy actually did murder this young girl in a cornfield in Illinois and actually took her across state lines to Indiana, which is key because that gets the federal government involved in the FBI. And so ultimately what happens is Larry Hall he confesses to this one killing, but the case against him is kind of thin. There's some holes in it. And there's a chance that on appeal, he might actually get out. And they think he's, in fact, murdered over a dozen young women and girls. And so that's why they offered the deal to Jimmy Keene to see if he can get an actual, a better confession, I guess, out of Larry Hall, explaining where these other bodies are and what he did to these girls. So it jumps back and forth between the detective work of figuring out who committed these crimes. Was it Larry Hall? And what's going on in the prison. And, there's a lot of drama. And Larry Hall is being kept in a supermax prison for the criminally insane, which is just like the worst possible prison someone could be in. And Jimmy Keene goes in there to try to befriend him and find out, more about what he may or may not have done. And that's where the drama really takes place, is once the two of them are together in this Missouri prison and what goes on from there. Now, as I said, the series isn't over yet, but we're pretty far into it, and the episodes are about an hour. I definitely recommend. I think it's a very intense show. It's very much a tense nail biter drama, but it also has a lot of interesting detective work the kind of stuff that I really like. But I feel like this is one that I wouldn't binge. I would since it's only 6 episodes, I'd watch a couple at a time probably is the way I would do it. But it's been fantastic. I mean, it's yet again another Apple TV Plus show that's really kind of hit it out of the park. I expect that this is the sort of story that may actually end up winning awards, next year.
Very nice. I'm intrigued. I think I'm going to watch this.
Yeah, I think this is one that you'll like. I think you'll really like this, Federico. And it's got, there's enough action and tension in it that I don't think it's one of those that that'll put you to sleep when you're watching it late at night. So I think you'll enjoy it. All right, Federico. That's it for this week's episode of Mac Stories Unwind. Thanks again to our sponsor for this episode. That's SaneBox. You can find me and Federico over at macstories.net. Federico is on Twitter and Instagram, where he is at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVORHWES. Talk to you next Friday, Federico.
Ciao, John.